Sup, gang? Welcome back. This is part 2 of Comfort Creek Live. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode, highly recommend going back and catching up so that this makes sense. But basically, we went to a festival called Comfort Creek. We set up the Labia Lounge live. We sat on our big velvet pussy couch and we had a bunch of real chats about real shit with real people. I wanted to just jump in before I get stuck into this episode to solve a couple of mysteries, tie up some loose ends. Well, unfortunately, I can't solve the Bumble guy mystery yet. He hasn't got in touch. I don't have any new intel. There's still one more episode next week of Comfort Creek recordings, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have more info for you then, but might just be one of those things that we never know. And hopefully it was entertaining for you regardless of knowing the truth. But one mystery I can solve for you is you might have been wondering why at the start of last week's episode, Hannah was sitting in a pool of blood. And just going to clear that one up in case it wasn't obvious. Hannah was on day 1 of their bleed, wearing their most delightful and my absolute favorite one of their outfits that is dubbed Blood Moon Priestess outfit. So Hannah has a Blood Moon Priestess, kind of like big red muumuu that they wear when they've got their period. And we found out later that Hannah actually had their period panties on inside out. So that pool of blood was, a product of the period panties not actually doing their job and absorbing it. So anyway, we're sitting in some beanbags in the back of my van recording and just thought that one might have been a bit confusing for you. So anyway, mystery solved there. Hopefully we find out what the fuck the deal is with Bumble Guy. I hope you enjoy this batch of amazing conversations and stories and chats that I had with strangers on the Labia Lounge.
This program is brought to you by Pussy Magnets.
Put a midge on your fringe with a pussy magnet.
Welcome, my lovely lumps. Or should I say lovely labs? I'm so thrilled to have you here in the Labia Lounge to yarn about all things sexuality, womanhood, holistic health, and everything in between. Your legs. Can never help myself. Anyway, we're going to have vag loads of real chats with real people about real shit. So buckle up. You're about to receive the sex ed that you never had and have a bloody good laugh while you're at it. Before we get stuck in, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm recording this, the Menang people. It's an absolute privilege to be living and creating dope podcast content on Noongar country, and I pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. Now, if you're ready, let's flap and do this. Oh God, is there such thing as too many vagina jokes in the one intro? Whatever, I'm leaving it in. It's my podcast.
Don't panic, you're not broken. Your sex education was a piece of shit. Get your flaps out and pull up a couch. It's the Labia Lounge.
I don't know how I'm going to recreate that, but what did you just say?
Dude, we are famous right now. We went to bed famous and we woke up and we're still famous. It wasn't a fucking fever dream. We're killing it right now. People literally just walked past us on the couch and cheered. We're actually famous. We're totally
No,
killing it.
my favorite bit was I was feeling really awkward and uncomfortable about posing on the couch for this photo shoot that makes me uncomfortable. I was like, I don't know how to hold my body. And then I finally was like, you know what? Fuck it. I can do this. I'm getting into it. And we got into this sick pose on the couch and I was just given a fucking saucy stare down the barrel of the camera, and these people walk past and the dude just stops and he's like, oh, that looks so cool. And I was like, yes, it does.
Totally. It's the ultimate ego boost, dude.
I mean, we did it.
We did it.
We did it. We're here. We've got a pussy couch. We look sick.
We've made it to the top.
I mean, I don't know.
I know.
No, you just tried to fist bump me, but I'm holding the recorder, so that was what that was about. I just, oi, lucky I've got an old wind guard on here. I didn't even hear that. Hannah just punched the microphone. But it's got like this sweet little troll doll hairdo. It's called a windscreen, I think, and it like stops the wind from interfering with the recorder because it's like a journo recorder that you take out and about. And so you have to put this like little sock over the top of it with like fluff on it. I'm sure you've seen them on like sound booms. Anyway, I'm talking about it too much. I'm trying to describe it. It looks like a cool little troll doll, and I gave it a little hair tie and a hairdo the other day, and it was pretty funny. So anyway, I think when you punch the mic, the troll doll hair absorbed it.
Perfect.
This is sick. This is like, I love this thing.
Yeah.
I might just record all my podcast episodes on this from now on.
Yeah, you should. It's got good vibes.
Yeah. All right, cool. So how are you feeling? We just got slammed with like a bunch of like back-to-back guests on the Labia Lounge. And
I'm feeling so good.
nice. I'm wishing I hadn't lost my voice quite so much. But
Have you had a hot drink
it's
yet?
okay. Yeah, I'm just having a little bit of chai at the moment.
Okay, well, maybe pause talking for a second. Have your chai. Refuel up your good vibes.
All right. Alrighty, got a super special treat. I've got Esther, a trauma and fuck, I've already forgotten. Can you please just like roll out your accolades?
I'm a trauma and somatic embodiment therapist, but I focus in like sex education and sexual health and stuff.
That's right. See, I told you, what a treat. So Esther, how has sex changed for you as you've gotten older? Have there been any defining moments that have changed how you experience it?
Yeah, I think it's like completely different to how I used to experience it. And it's so funny, all your cards feel like it kind of links into like that question of like, I don't know how to summarize it, but like the stages you go through realizing that you never had a proper sex education. So like that my vagina is actually not what the entirety of my body part is called, and that there are so many other things within that. So learning how to like actually treat my body like it deserves to be treated, how to tell other people how to do that, how to hold boundaries and communicate that. I think Tantra and kink have been huge for me in that, of like Tantra in the like slowing down and stopping and like self-exploration, doing celibacy. And then the kink element in terms of the communication and the boundaries and the way that the space is so well held and so like well communicated, and like being able to meld those two has like completely transformed how I have sex. Like I think the last 5 years I've forgotten how much I've changed, that now like I'm polyamorous, so now when my partner has an interaction with someone outside of our relationship and I'm like, oh my God, everything about that was so unconsensual and goes against like everything I believe in, and I assume because you're dating me that you also like know that, but then I'm like, oh, actually this is how most people in the normal world interact with each other, and I live in a bubble.
We forget how far we've come with that stuff. I just think so much is like a given, and it's like assumed knowledge or ways of interacting. Nah, like the last time, it's been years, but the last time I had sex with a normie, I was fucking horrified. I was like, because like, you know, when I met him, he seemed like super like awake, quote unquote, or like pretty self-aware, pretty emotionally intelligent, conscious of like lots of things, had great conversation, all of it great. Got to the bedroom and I was just like, oh no, this is the state of things for most people. And I was like, fuck.
It's so true though. It's exactly what you're saying. It's like, even if they've done all of the work and the consciousness, because there's such a lack of like, I think it's still so taboo, right? Or it's not talked about. And then there's this like secrecy about the bedroom, and so like often people don't communicate their needs, and then often people don't go and do their self-development in that area.
It's quite confronting when you realize, we are in a total bubble, and I guess that's why we've got clients. That's why we're in the work that we're in, to try to like shift the needle. But I found like, no matter, like I do a lot of growth and like kind of heal a bunch of my sexual trauma along the way, and you know, take leaps and bounds and think, oh my God, I'm on top of this now. Like I've got great boundaries. I know what I want. I know how to communicate, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd maybe be with someone that like hadn't done the work, and I just plummeted back down to like a lot closer to their level of like communicating, and I found myself having more trouble speaking up about my desires or boundaries or trying to explain something, because I hadn't, you know, if you're with other people that kind of get it, they do this kind of work, or at least they've like dabbled and or you've been with them a long enough time that like, you know, you don't need to fill them in on all the little like nuances of like how you operate in the bedroom. Yeah, it's a real shock when you're with like someone new and they just want to like jackhammer bone you, and they don't even know what consent is, and they like, you know, they think like sex is about them ejaculating and then it's done, like all of that shit that I'm like, what? People still think that? And it's like, yes,
That's crazy.
and it made it harder for me. Like if you're with someone else with amazing conversation and communication skills, like it's super easy to be like really fucking ascended and like great at boundaries and communication, but the real test is when you like try to practice that with just your average person.
Absolutely. Well, because also, like, you know, how much of it can they understand?
Yeah, it's all really new for them, and they haven't, like, usually I'm the one planting the seeds and like breaking through that little, it's exhausting though.
It's exhausting, and also you want to be able to have interactions where you don't have to be the educator.
I don't want to be the teacher. I don't want to project.
That's what you do.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to do that in my own personal sex life.
Exactly.
I would love someone who is happy to do the work.
Yeah, I was already doing it and has their own stuff that they're bringing in to like teach me or educate me on, or like ideas, or like it would be cool to not always be the one like leading the charge and I find like a lot of the time, and maybe I've got a biased opinion, but I work mostly with women and they're all just saying like, the hetero ones are like, man, like I am the one in this relationship that is driving the change, that's wanting to go and do this workshop or couples therapy or work on myself so that we can improve the relationship, and he's just like not pulling his weight, and like how do I get him to want to be as invested as I am, and like come to me with some new ideas and be like, hey, do you want to have this cute date night idea, or like like, you know,
very true.
It's just like often the woman that's way more into personal development and like self-reflection and thinking, oh, I'm the one that needs to do the work and change to make this work, whereas it's like both of you should be doing
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like on that, I've like been really lucky. Like my partner, I went to ISTA and I went to did all this, you know, different workshops and tantra events and kink and things, and then as I would be away on those things, he would go and read the books I'd recommended. He would go and like do all the exercises. He would go and like watch all these things, read all these books that I'd recommended, and then come to me and be like, do you want to try these things together? Do you want to try doing this together? And like our dynamic and our sex life has completely evolved throughout our relationship. I had surgery a couple of times. I couldn't have sex for months, and like all of that just like benefited our relationship so much. But I'm so grateful and lucky that I have someone who was able to go, yeah, this is completely new to me, but you're important to me, so I will do the work.
Make an effort, yeah.
And I think maybe there needs to be like less of an excuse around this thing of like, oh, it's okay, I'll just do it, or it's like, actually, no, maybe there's a cutoff of like, actually, if you don't start bringing stuff to me, if you don't start telling me that you want to meet me in this growth and this personal development, then maybe you're actually not my person.
Yeah.
Because like, it isn't fair. And if someone needs motivation, then that's a good motivation.
It's a pretty fucking big ultimatum, I know, and it's about like, being able to stick to that. I think a lot of people give the ultimatums and then stay in the relationship even though nothing changes and just get more and more frustrated. But anyway, I've got another question for you.
Oh yeah. Do you want to wait till the blowy guy goes?
Yeah, maybe. Cool. Okay. Leaf blower has gone. Is there anything you haven't tried yet in intimate relationships that you'd like to? And you're pretty into kink, so I imagine like there's either you've tried everything you want to try, or there's like always more that you might become interested in.
Yeah. I've had a lot of group sex, and I have had lots of like male, female group sex, but what I would really like to have is like 2 non-binary or 2 bisexual men or male-bodied people in that group sex thing, just to see the difference, because it's so interesting to me, right, that like women who are even heterosexual or even maybe slightly heteroflexible will still interact with each other in group sex, but the men will be really uninteractive with each other. And it happens in kink spaces as well. And it's like, then the whole situation changes because it's all focused on the woman, or it's all focused on, you know, the other people getting pleasure, and there's no interaction between them. There's just this pause. So I think that just for the experience of like full inclusion.
Yeah.
To see what that feels like.
Into it with everyone.
Yeah. And like, there not being this consciousness of like, I don't want to touch this person or this body part. It's just like everything's just like flowing and sexy. And then that with like a ton of kinky elements.
Yeah.
And I also actually want to have a like a birthday fantasy orgy next year where everyone comes and like all the people I've vetted come and have like a fantasy or a thing they want to be fulfilled. And we like you share it with the group, and then anyone who wants to be involved can be involved, anyone who wants to step out, and it could be like sexual or non-sexual or kinky or not, and I just want to see what comes out of that.
Oh my God.
I think that'd be really fun.
Fuck. Yeah, that's huge. That's a huge vibe. You'll have to let me know how that goes when you.
I mean, you can come.
I don't know if I'm proudly very vanilla.
Great.
I mean, I've gone through like phases, but they literally were kind of just phases, like done little bits of that sort of thing. And at the time it was really exciting and I was into it, but it's like it was at a certain time where I was in a certain place and I was with certain people, and that doesn't exist anymore, and I'm fine with that. Like I kind of just, I don't know, because I used to be poly as well, and now I'm just like super monog, like just that's what I want. I want to have a family, like, and I'm don't feel particularly like sexually adventurous, but you know, like stuff can always change. Hit me up at the time and see how I'm feeling, because like if anyone's gonna hold a really like safe container to experiment with stuff like that, it's probably fucking you. So you know,
I think there's a huge difference between group sex as well, and like I used to be in like the sex party swingers scene, and that is so repulsive to me now, right? Like there's nothing about it that I find attractive, going to a space and like having sex with a bunch of strangers who don't know what consent and boundaries are and who don't ask me what I like. But like these spaces, it's so much more about actually not even penetrative sex. It's like sensuality or like you know, all these other things, and it's like that for me is what makes it so lovely. It's like everyone is able to just fully be in whatever they want.
Yeah, totally. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for talking to me. Yeah, you're losing it, babe.
Oh my God. Yeah, first day at the festival, I always lose my voice. And Hannah last night was like, you can't lose your voice. Your voice is your instrument. We've got to record. And I was like, fuck, I mean, yeah. So anyway, okay.
Hey, Babe Towns. So sorry to interrupt, but I simply had to pop my head into the lounge here and mention another virtual lounge that you've got to get around. It's the Labia Lounge Facebook group that I've created for listeners of the potty to mingle in. And there you'll find extra bits and bobs like freebies or discounts for offerings from guests who've been interviewed on the podcast, inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, and support from a community of labial legends. So head over to the links in the show notes and I'll hopefully see you in there. And now, back to the episode.
All right, my love. So I have a couple of questions for you from the deck. If you don't like the questions, just tell me. We can pass. The first question I have for you, and I don't even know your name, and you've literally just sat on my couch. So sorry. Do you like swallowing cum? Why not?
I don't. I used to when I was younger because I thought that was what like we were supposed to do. And I thought that was what was sexy, and I kind of jumped into sex straight away with my first boyfriend, not really knowing, and he had a really like misconstrued conception because of like porn, so it was all very like intense, and I always felt very like forced to do it even though I didn't like it so much. So now like I really enjoy the feeling of them coming in my mouth because I think it's sexy, and I love seeing them relish in it and enjoy it so much, but I kind of just like lock my throat up, keep it in my mouth, and then like cutesy, like hee hee, I need to go spit this shit out, like that. And then they kind of have a laugh about it, I have a laugh about it, and it's fine. And I just say to them like, it's just not what I'm into, and I just feel like it just it doesn't trigger me, but it brings back like the peer pressure that I felt as like a young woman learning about sex, learning about my body. And I feel like perhaps one day if I feel very comfortable and I can share that with a partner and we like work through it, then I would think I would really enjoy it again, because I do think it's hot. But I just want to be able to feel like completely safe and comfortable with the person.
Yes.
So that's kind of
Oh my
how I feel
God.
about
That was such a good answer.
I
was
spoke
like,
about it the other day in the car.
oh, no way.
Like randomly, and I was like, whoa, actually, and then I was like, oh, and then I like made the connection, so like I kind of had it already like in my head how I feel about
I must have known. This is like probably one of the most. So when we were writing all these questions in the deck, you know, we were trying to come up with cues that would start like a deeper conversation than maybe people would normally, and like some sort of edgy topics. There was a couple that we didn't put in because we're like, oh, too edgy. We just don't know like who's going to sit on this couch and if we're gonna like ruin their life with this fucking question.
Completely.
And like, do you like swallowing cum was like one of the more edgy ones. But I was like, you know, fucking what?
Fuck it.
No,
But, like at a festival, people have open hearts. I feel like
I literally like have an episode of my podcast where I interview an ex of mine who is a man and who loves swallowing his own cum. He eats his own cum. We did a whole. So I'm like, well, this
What do
is
you
really
mean,
on.
like, he comes in a glass and then swallows
No,
it?
he like comes in his hand or he scoops it off his tummy and like just eats it. And he like, okay, you have to actually listen to the episode.
Oh my God, I gotta
It's
listen
like-
to it?
It's a whole thing.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, I was
I've
like,
never even
nah,
heard of
I'm
that.
going to keep this
Hilarious.
question in the deck.
Wow, okay, I have to listen to that podcast. I have so many questions for your ex.
It's an episode called Battle of the Exes. And
Hilarious.
it's all just TMI stories, and we go back and forth with the most like TMI shit we can come up
my
with.
God,
and
delicious.
he fucking demolishes me. He is a disgusting human.
Oh my God.
It's like a lot of people couldn't. It's a 2-part episode. A lot of people couldn't get through the second part. Like turned it off because they're like, "This is so repulsive."
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay,
get
well,
around
I'm gonna
it.
listen.
It's
I'm gonna
gold.
get
It's
around
gold.
it.
You will not find anything like this on the internet.
Oh my God.
It's really good.
Okay, well now
I'm
I know
like-
what we're listening to on the way home. Seriously.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another question for you,
Okay.
and then it's your turn if you want it. You don't want it? Okay, that's fine. Yeah, you're like, after that question, I'm not getting up there. Totally. I respect that. Would you have sex with someone who had never really had a sexual experience before?
Yo. So that last night we went for dinner with some friends, and there was this guy there who I know from my childhood, and he like had a super glow up. Like he's like really beautiful now. He was cute before, but like as I saw him as a young teenager, you know.
Oh my God.
And now he's like a man, and he's never kissed someone.
Glow up.
A glow up.
Like,
As
how
in
old
could
are you?
see, I'm 24.
Totally, because I'm like really out of the loop, and I
Okay.
kind of know what glow up means,
Okay,
sort of
that's
from
fair.
seeing like a little
essentially
but
like
it's
someone coming into their own skin, and like someone who was like, you know, as a teenager you're battling your insecurities, your anxieties, like you don't really know who you are, and then when you see someone after years and they've kind of like come into their own skin and they're like
'cause I
standing
thought-
loud and proud, and like and you can see it in their body, like they're glowing.
I totally know that concept. I just love that you called it a glow up, because I thought glow up was like traditionally, you know, when someone did a big makeover. Like I've only seen those glow ups on social media where
Well,
they're
that's
like,
my spiritual term for a glow up. Maybe that is also like the term, but this is my spiritual.
I love it because it sounds like you just use slang. Anyway,
yeah, go for it.
I mean, anyway,
so
love
yes.
the story.
So he had never kissed anyone, and
Still?
he's
How do
never
you know?
done anything because my friends told me, and they're friends with him, and they're like, would you? Because I'm quite open, and I actually like, if it came up organically, yes, but I feel like at this point I have so many experiences and I don't really want to. Like I feel nervous, like unless they came to me and they were like, I want to go through this, like let's figure it out together, then I would be into it, and if we had a connection. But just for the sake of it, to like teach someone or show that, and like I don't want to educate you, I want it to come organically. Like it's a connection and it's a vibration, and it's like if they're nervous or doing it just to like take it off the box, it gets to a point that I feel like it's just to cross it off and say they've done it.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
at that
not
age,
healthy
it's
for
like-
anyone. And that's a big deal, you know what I mean? So either it has to come from a spot of like love between the both of you, but it has to be like, you know, when you date someone, not just like stunned, like, okay, now we did it. It has to be a zhuzh, you know? Like so that's how I feel about it. And like, they were like, oh, I'll you do it. Like, what am I, a prostitute? Like,
Take on for the team. Just go and sort it out for him.
I was like, that's like not cool. But if I was on a date with someone, then they opened up and they were like, look, I've never done anything. Then I'd be like, okay, if you want to, we can figure that out together. But I'm not someone you can just like send to your friend and be like, oh, deal with that. Like, that's not hard for anyone.
It's a huge commitment. Like, if you were to like work that out, because I think when I was 21 or something, I was like semi-jazzing this 24-year-old and he was a virgin. And I just remember kind of being like, oh man, like I am not into this enough to like...
Yeah, I think you have to be really like feeling the person to like guide them through it, because it is a lot. It's like they're gonna unlock things that they've never even come across within themselves, because that's what it is, like intimacy. It like unlocks a lot of spots, you know?
I actually did end up fucking him though.
And how was it?
I totally forgot. It was ages up. So just like having a goth sesh now. Sorry, but I can't believe how relevant this anecdote is, and I'd forgotten about it. Yeah, so like we were jazzing. I was like, ooh, just keeping it above the belt. Don't want to like fucking take this guy's virginity. And then things ended, and I decided that I actually really liked him, and I wanted to be with him, and I was like, nah, fuck. And he was off it by then. And so then like, and then months later, like probably back at that age, like on the weekend, you know, you might be having some drinks and you might drunk text one another and be like, what are you doing? And I ended up fucking like catching this. He was just like, yep, come around. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just gonna fuck him.
Good on you.
I'm gonna do it. He's a good guy. Like, and I was also like, maybe I just want to see what see what it's like. I can't decide if I want to date someone until I've like slept with them,
mate.
So like,
that's a whole nother topic that I'm very passionate about. And like, how do you know? Literally, I get into it so much. Like, I have a lot of religious cousins, and obviously I'm not religious. And like, we have this conversation because a lot of my friends are very conservative or traditional, and they're like, no, you have to wait. And I'm like, but what if? Like, that's important. Like, sex is important, and to like say it's not, or to put it aside and act like you're too good for that, I'm like, it's kind of like, listen, unless you're asexual, that's a whole nother story. But like, to like diss it when it's so, we're sexual beings, you know, and I don't know, man, dude, I could ramble about that forever.
This is like so on brand. So on brand. It's like you're my co-host. I'm just like, bitches speaking my language. I feel you guys will love the podcast. It's like you're already having the conversations that like are really interesting to me. Yeah, sick.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome. I loved it.
Stoked. Anything else you want to talk about? Any sex ed questions you want to ask?
Yes, I do actually. I was with a guy a week or so ago. We're no longer seeing each other. We met at a party, we went back to his, and we decided we weren't going to have sex on the first night. He couldn't get it up at all, and he was like incredibly frustrated with himself that he couldn't. And like, you know, we were, as you said, jazzing. Don't even know that term. And then he just like could not. And it got to a point that he literally like bounced off of me. Like, he just like whoosh. Because he was so disappointed in himself, and I tried to explain to him that it was like okay, and like, you know, his body's communicating with himself that he's not in the space, but like, not what does it mean? And then like he ended up ending it a week later and was like, we need to leave it there. Like, it was really confrontational for him. But like, what could I have done as a sexual partner? Because I was like, I don't want to make you feel pressured or make you feel like I have to. And I said to him like, look, if I was not wet and I was really closed off, would you force me to do something? No, you wouldn't, because my body just can't right now, and that's valid. But like, he consistently tried to force himself to get it up. Like, it was like, it looks like he was like, you know, it wasn't a pretty sight. So like, what do you do in that situation?
That is such a fucking hard situation. Oh my God, I've been in that situation so many times. And unfortunately, I feel like that's more and more common with like young guys your age and like teenagers, like having erectile dysfunction issues and like just like so much fucking sexual anxiety and performance anxiety. And it's like, you know, there's a lot of different sources, but like porn is a pretty massive one, porn
Yeah.
addiction, leading into like erectile dysfunction and stuff, and then just also like that psychological pressure, like from watching porn and seeing like how you're supposed to perform. Like, dude, like these poor young guys are just like,
Yeah, and it's like he was in the
fucked.
fight with himself, and then in the morning he tried again and again, it didn't work. And I said to him, I was like, until you connect with me and like leave this like internal battle, which is like really hard, but like we're never gonna be able to like be together
Yeah.
because you're not with me right now. You're within yourself, and that's okay. But like,
Yeah.
we need to have this like flow. And it was just like, it was hard to see. And then I felt like I was therapizing him, and that didn't feel sexy. And he wasn't even open to like talking about it honestly. Like he felt very like face.
Honestly,
level.
there's nothing else you could have done.
Yeah.
You did like phenomenally,
Okay.
dude. Like, and I just don't think he was able to like receive any of that or handle that level of like vulnerability or communication.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, that's
it's
good to
just
know, at
like
least.
often that's way harder for guys, especially young guys. So like, yeah, there's not really. I mean, you were loving and compassionate and understanding, and you took all the pressure off. You said all of the right things. Honestly, like, I don't think you could do much more. And I've been in that position, and like, I still like to think that having that received so maturely by us, even though at the time they like fully couldn't meet us there.
Yeah.
It was like still really healing for them in some way,
Yeah,
and
I
it
hope
soothed
so.
a little bit, you know, because the opposite like could happen if you think about like how you could have reacted to that and how probably other women have reacted to
That's
that.
actually really
I've been with like a couple of dudes who, you know, were just like, and I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, like had heaps of trouble getting it up, got really frustrated with themselves, like everything you just described. And, you know, I really cared about them and I liked them. And it wouldn't have mattered if I did or didn't. I would have acted this way anyway. But I just wanted to, like, be as compassionate as possible and be like, dude, like, it is not a big deal. I do not care. Like, you are fine. And he's been like, yeah, I just have had, like, few experiences. Like, I had this one night stand. I, like, went back to her place, like, couldn't get it up. And, like, she just got, like, so, like, ugh, that she was like, get out, like, what are you good for then? She was like, oh, what are you good for then? Like, leave, because he couldn't fuck her. And I was like,
That's so
hey.
sad.
So, you know, you could have reacted like that.
Yeah, okay.
You could have been neutral.
That's
It
good
still
to
would have been
know
better than
that
that.
what the other, could have been.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So good job.
Thank you. There you go. Cool.
Excuse the interruption, my loves, but I'm shamelessly seeking reviews and 5-star ratings for the potty because, as I'm sure you've noticed by now, it's pretty fab. And the more people who get to hear it, the more people it can help. Reviews and ratings help me curry favour with the algorithmic gods and get suggested to other listeners to check out. Plus, they make me feel really good and appreciated as I continue to pour my heart and soul into creating this baby for you. And I promise I don't mazz over them or anything. I mostly just tuck them away for a rainy day when I'm filled with self-doubt and existential dread about being self-employed, which is fairly frequently. So you see, leaving a review really does make a difference, and it's an easy little act of support that you can take in just a minute or two by either going to Spotify and leaving 5 stars for the show or writing a written review and leaving 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts. Choose your poison, or if you're a real overachiever, you could do both. Whoa now. If you are writing a review though, just be sure to only use G-rated words because despite the fact that this is a podcast about sexuality, words like sex can be censored and your review won't actually show up. Lame. Anyway, oh, what was that? Oh, you're going to go do it right now while I wait. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great idea. May as well just quickly click that 5-star button before we get on with it and, you know, like forget about it and get on with your day. I'm hearing them roll in. I'm hearing those 5 stars. Oh my God, I make myself cringe. Anyway, thank you much, Lee. You're a total gem, and I'll let you get back to the episode now.
By the way, it's a very beautiful space. It's a very lovely.
Thank
I
you.
love it. Immediately, I saw it and went, "Oh, that is glorious."
Thank you. Well, that's the idea. I'm really glad.
Yeah,
I want it to be like
yeah.
approachable, accessible,
Yes.
plush,
And you made it yourself.
My friend Hannah made this for me.
Oh,
I'm the ideas person, and Hannah executes it
wow.
amazingly.
It's stunning.
Like, I cannot take credit for the couch.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I'm delighted to be on your...
Fab to have you here. On the flaps.
The Labia Lounge. On the flaps, on the flaps. Oh, you can just say so many things. It's
Totally.
great.
There's a lot of puns. It lends itself well. All right. So, have you ever done any of those sort of quizzes to find out your erotic blueprint or anything like that?
I haven't.
I feel like
Is it?
yeah, like you're kind of describing, feeling as though a lot of the sex you've been having lately is quite mechanical. It's about the actual intercourse. It's about the sex and the acts and the physical.
Yeah.
But you're more energetic, and you want the more kind of emotional and energetic interplay and the connection-based stuff. And maybe because an erotic blueprint type can be sensual, can be kinky, can be sexual, which is just the act and the sexiness. What else is there? And energetic. Maybe there's one more that's like a kind of a bit of all of them. So maybe it would be interesting to do the quiz.
You do it online? An erotic blueprint.
Erotic blueprint.
Yes.
And then you can just kind of have the intention of like finding someone else with a compatible blueprint to you, and you kind of got the language and the understanding around it that might make it easier to like vet people, have that conversation when you meet them, like suss out whether they're going to be.
Well, in many ways, I think I'm quite. It's funny, I'm a fairly out there person, but I do find sometimes quite hard to actually even broach that.
100%. So does most people, yeah.
Yeah. Which is sort of odd. I sort of think, I walk away going, would this be in the moment? When's that moment where you
tricky
sort of like...
to tell, because it depends on the other person as well. You don't want to make them feel uncomfortable.
No,
like,
that's right.
Dude, so many people find that a really challenging thing to broach, and that is why I have this podcast. It's literally because all of the conditioning and the shame and the stigma and the taboo that we're all just like steeped in all the fucking time prevents us from having those conversations and normalizing, like learning that stuff about one another before we find ourselves naked in the fucking bedroom being like, we're really incompatible. Probably could have figured that out if we'd talked about it first.
That's right.
Yeah, so...
And then sometimes I think I just, in other parts of my world, I realise that the reason I haven't actually possibly excelled at some things is because what I need to do is actually is to have the tools. Sometimes you need the tools. And I think, what are the tools? Are they toys? Are they dildos? Are they butt plugs? Whatever they are. Is that what it is that I need to almost purchase, or is it?
I think the
you know
tools
what I mean? Like, are they the tools, or are the tools the sensuality?
The tools are the communication.
Communication, yeah.
And like learning what you like yourself and what you require to be attracted and connected to a partner. I feel like the tools are all very like based around communication skills, people skills, like self-connection, self-love, self-understanding, self-compassion, all of that. And then like you can make any sex amazing if you've got those. Like literally, I would say the number one tool is communication.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Which is a boring answer, but it's true. And like no amount of fucking toys are going to make things feel great if you don't have that piece down.
No, that's
right. And if you can't communicate with your partner or lover and describe how you want them to use the fucking tools, like
yes, that's right. So, that understanding, that's true. I mean, not to say that the intercourse isn't great. I mean, it's great. It's just sometimes it is great, but the thing. Well, great's not really the word, but possibly it is the word actually, because that's what it's being. It's like a kind of like, it happens, and I'm feeling like, this could continue, but no, it's going to be, it's just sort of, it is just not mechanical, but it's obviously
it's lacking something.
It's a beautiful pleasure, but it is also oopsie.
Oh my goodness, someone just walked on my rug with shoes on.
What were they thinking?
Dear oh dear.
Couldn't they tell?
Far out, Brussels sprout.
Oh no, it's a fairly lush place.
Ah, goodness, this is my main stress this weekend, is trying to keep this rug like pristine. It's so muddy out there too. Anyway, so did you want to choose a conversation card, or do you think we've had enough of a discussion?
Well, we may have.
What role does music play in your sex life?
Yes.
Or your relationship to your sexuality?
Oh, it's actually vital. I think that it's crucial for different rhythms and different sounds can what's the word? Enhance, inspire, more and more. The rhythm, the energy, the heightened. I actually, it's funny actually because I have been doing a lot of, dare I say it? I'm on the Spotify, halfway through sex because I'm sort of like, what is it called? Shazam.
You're getting distracted by a good tune.
tune. I'm like loving this guy. I love this tune.
You got to be able to
What's that?
sneaky Shazam. I think that there's if a tune is good and you don't know what it is and you're mid-sex, I say you're allowed to Shazam it. Definitely. I love music though. You don't want to miss that opportunity.
No, possibly not. But I must admit, that is a wonderful pleasure. The sensory. I just want to be so much more extra. I want to be extra sensory or sensorial or something in my world. That's what's.
I want that for you.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah.
I really hope you felt music's a great tool. I hope you find someone that's equally into what you're into and that can explore those things and they're out there for sure. So
I think humour as well, funnily enough. I can be a little bit of a giggler and I do sometimes find that, people are a little bit put off by
people take sex way too seriously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I love the play and the sort of I mean, it's not for everybody, I realise, but it can be sort of stifling as well. I feel yes.
Yeah, you don't want to have to be too serious during sex. You got to be able to have a giggle sometimes. What if someone farts? You got to laugh.
Exactly.
Sex is funny. Bodies
sounds.
are funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right, amazing. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Frey. Yeah, beautiful.
Do I need to read it out?
I can read it out.
Oh, sure. However this goes, yep.
No, I mean, it can go however we feel like it. Maybe I'll read it out because I'm technically the host, even though I've lost my voice, so it's a little bit painful. But let's go. In your relationships, have you more commonly had the lower or higher libido out of the two of you? And how has this made you feel? How has it been to navigate that? Sorry.
Yep. No, that's fine. Okay, so I think this is a really great question. I feel like, especially as someone who has felt like in life I've had a very healthy libido, and I think whether I'm in a committed relationship or in a lover's dynamic, I seem to slip really quickly into this very physical, very tactile, very affectionate space, and that feels really safe to me. It comes on quite quickly, and that can probably really seem like a lot to other people, but for me it just feels very natural and very safe, and I guess I've had to have felt safe in order to have gotten to that place anyway.
Totally.
However, the last partnership I was in, I would definitely say that my partner had a very high libido, and it did not always feel safe, and it didn't always feel like it was a reciprocal dance that we were doing.
Yeah, totally. Amazing answer. Thank you. Do you want to delve deeper into that one, or do you want to answer the other question?
Yeah, I think in relation to what I just said about my previous relationship dynamic being that I think I still had that, that healthy libido present, but I do feel like that was probably impacted by the fact that his was greater than mine, and it didn't feel like the spectrum of intimacy was sort of taken into account. Sometimes I was just sometimes I just want to be able to keep my pajamas on and still feel really intimate and close with you, but not have to be penetrated. And it's sort of for him, I think, sex was very the climax, the apex was kind of
always the seeking point.
Yeah.
Whereas like for me, it was more like we have this whole smorgasbord that we can enjoy little bit by little bit or all at once and stuff like that. And inevitably it did actually create some like very real hurdles and challenges.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it sounds like when, like prior to that, when you were in relationships and maybe had the higher libido of the two, like it was not like I need the sex for the release. It was like playful, cute, affectionate, like a creative expression of your like, you know, to your partner. And I feel like that probably wouldn't have felt as, I mean, I don't know, maybe you had some partners with a lot lower libido than you, and your affectionate kind of approach might have felt like pressure to them. But it sounds like from the outside, without knowing anything about you or your relationships, like you probably still nailed having a higher libido, and it was less obvious that there was a discrepancy, because like you weren't coming at it from a place of like, I need sex more than you and you need to put out more, which I feel like a lot of women that I work with are in a position where their husband just really wants a lot more sex out of them, and it turns them so far away from, like, they completely lose their libidos, and it's like nothing to do with their libidos, it's to do with the kind of sex they're having and the kind of partner that they've got that's making them feel as though it's this obligatory thing that's their duty.
Yeah. I would also say that, like when you said that, you know, maybe I have had the higher libido at times, and I think that's really accurate. I've definitely been in probably more like early stage dynamics where, you know, I do really enjoy sexuality, and I feel like some engagements that I've had with men who have seemingly initiated a lot of like the, hey, I want, like, let's make out, and hey, stay over, and hey, all these sorts of things. And then when, you know, you're in the playful process of undressing and finding that bedroom space and your bedroom dynamics, and then them either just, you know, not being able to get a hard on or losing it, and, you know, them becoming really kind of self-critical on themselves, and that sort of mirroring out on me a little bit in not necessarily like a negative way, but maybe because it has seemed like, well, I've been pursuing this exchange and then it hasn't gone the way that, you know, the dream way, and then they retreat because, you know, for them they feel embarrassed, and then they're like, I don't know that I, you know. So yeah. The complex dance.
Yeah, pretty nuanced, pretty big topic. I think you nailed it. Thank you for sharing all of that. Amazing. I think my voice is going to cock out, so I'm just going to quit.
Thank you. That was really
quit
fun.
it.
Hey, me again. If you'd like to support the potty and you've already given it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening on, I want to mention that you can buy some really dope merch from the website and get yourself a Labia Lounge tote, tee, togs. Yep, you heard that right. I even have Labia Lounge bathers. Or a cute fanny pack if that'd blow your hair back. So if fashion isn't your passion though, you can donate to my Buy Me a Coffee donation page, which is actually called Buy Me a Soy Chai Latte, because I'll be the first to admit I'm a bit of a Melbourne cafe tosser like that. And yes, that is my coffee order. You can do a once-off donation or an ongoing membership and sponsor me for as little as 3 fat ones a month. And I also have a Sunroom profile over on the Sunroom app, as I've mentioned. And I also offer one-on-one coaching and online courses that'll help you level up your sex life and relationship with yourself and others in a really big way. So every bit helps, because it ain't cheap to put out a sweet podcast into the world every week out of my own pocket. So I will be undyingly grateful if you support me and my biz financially in any of these ways. And if you like, I'll even give you a mental BJ with my mind from the lounge itself. Saucy. And I'll pop the links in the show notes. Thank you. Later.
And actually, you should give a plug for your
I'd love
clinic.
to.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
amazing.
I'd love
Introduce
to.
yourself and give a little plug, because, I mean, it's going to be pretty on brand, and I think a lot of listeners will find it really helpful, yeah.
Well, my name is Meg Wilson. I'm a clinical counselor, and I own a therapy practice in Melbourne. We have an office in Paran, and we're called Unison Counseling. It's unisoncounseling.com, and we answer questions, provide support, give referrals, create advocacy, and we do relationship therapy for any and all types of relationships. You name it. Polyamory, kink community, open community, swinging community, whatever you got going on, you're not going to need to worry about us either not understanding or judging you.
Because it's so tricky to find a therapist or a practitioner that is able to traverse that territory, because it's less common, it's more on the fringe and like so taboo and stigmatized. So I feel like, I don't specialize in that area in terms of like open relating or BDSM and kink, and like gender things like that. I mostly work with hetero women. It's my kind of like niche that I'm the most qualified in. But I do get so many inquiries from people who are really keen to get some support and are like, do you know anyone in the queer space, in the poly space, in the queer poly BDSM? There's a lot of overlap. And it's fucking tricky. It's even tricky for me as a yoni mapping therapist and sex educator to find like a psych or a talk therapist who I can feel completely accepted by and not a little bit judged or just misunderstood, and that's not even that out there. So anyway, I've got a question from the deck for you though. What's the weirdest way that you mazzed as a teenager / young fang? And Maz means masturbation.
I was going to say.
So like the most creative, weird, interesting, different, unique kind of way that you mazzed when you were young.
I'd say I probably had an experience that was very like stock standard for young women. And that was that at some point when you're very young, you discover that the faucet in your bathtub does something that's particularly interesting to you as a young person. And you just kind of take that to its logical conclusion, And like the amount of people I talk to now in practice or among my friends are always like, oh my God, the shower head, are you getting? Because I grew up in a home where we never talked about sex. I grew up in a very, very, very conservative religious community in the United States. So it was absolutely forbidden to talk about anything like that. So you really just had to figure that shit out on your own.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like, you discover it accidentally and then you just kind of within like a little bubble of shame because you don't want anyone to know and it's a bad thing at the time. So you're like, you're like afraid of getting in trouble for it basically.
Yeah, totally. Great, love that answer. What's the best way to help you feel safe and comfortable to be intimate with someone?
I actually really love this one because I have these conversations a lot with clients and I realize that we talk a lot about safe sex, but we don't talk a lot about like what leads to safe sex. And the thing that leads to safe sex, and I can't believe anybody is kind of uncomfortable with this, but it's just how you talk about it. It's how you talk about it. And people don't realize that like consent is not awkward. Actually, it can be one of the sexiest like pre-intimacy, pre-physical experiences you can have where your brain is given the opportunity to fantasize with someone else about what it is you'd like to do together. And I guarantee you it's going to be better if you talk about it. So if you can comfortably just say like, I'm inspired by your body and these are the things that I'd like to imagine doing. How do you feel about that? And they can go, yeah, I like this, but I'd like to do it like that maybe with a little bit of this on the side and this is what I want to do for you. And so that pre-conversation can be foreplay that enhances the sexual experience rather than something that people are afraid of doing because it's like, oh no, it's awkward. And it's like, if you're not comfortable talking about sex, then you're not ready to do sex.
Yeah. I say that a lot.
So get comfortable talking about it. Get comfortable talking about it. And I think you're going to be fine. But unless you can like name that beforehand, don't guess. Guesswork is where you go wrong, and it's where somebody feels uncomfortable or afraid to speak up or whatever. So like, just have a really fun, intimate conversation about what you want to do. Like that doesn't. How is that not anything but super hot?
Yeah, totally agreed. And that conversation and the ability to have that conversation is definitely a major factor in like cultivating safety and like getting to a point where you feel comfortable enough with that person to be physically intimate. Like for me, it's just like kind of madness that we just skip that so often, especially young people. So yeah, great answer.
My pleasure, yeah.
Alrighty, I'm going to cut it there. I got a bit more audio from Comfort Creek for you next week. Some really meaty conversations that I've saved till last, and also because I haven't got consent yet to publish them from the person that's in them. I reckon he's going to say yes, though. It's such a good chat. How could he not? I just feel like he'd be holding out on us and preventing us from a really teachable moment by saying no. But anyway, I'm not going to pressure him. He is currently offline, so I can't get hold of him to like get that confirmation. But hopefully by next week, I'll have the okay. And then I'll be back to regular episodes. I've got a really amazing one about vaginismus and painful sex coming up, and a super incredible episode about sexual trauma and sexual shame and how we can overcome this, and a whole bunch more in the works. So stay tuned for those, and I hope you enjoyed this installment of the Labia Lounge Live. And that's it, darling hearts. Thank you for stopping by the Labia Lounge. Your bum groove in the couch will be right where you left it, just waiting for you to sink back in for some more double L action next time. And in the meantime, if you'd be a dear and subscribe, share this episode, or leave a review on iTunes, then you can pat yourself on the snatch, because that, my dear, is a downright act of sex-positive feminist activism. And you'd be supporting my vision to educate, empower, demystify, and destigmatize with this here podcast. Also, I'm always open to feedback, topic ideas that you'd love to hear covered, or guest suggestions. So feel free to get in touch via my website at freyagraph.com, or say hey over on Insta. My handle is Freya_graph_YMT, and I seriously hope you're following me on there, because damn, we have fun. We have fun. Anyway, later labial legends. I'll see you next time.